Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Marupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhirupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai, 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 Namo Namaha. So we're still in our second chapter, and we're dealing with two essential topics, kartavya, which is the compulsion to work, obligatory actions. And we talked about the paradigm that Yoga Vasishtha uses, that our whole mind, our suffering, samsara, the world, can be reduced to three ideas. I feel like a person. I'm Jim. And when that jiva bhavana arises, I feel incomplete. I have that God-shaped hole in my heart. And then the mind posits a goal, and the goal only takes one of two forms. I either need to fix or change the world, or I need to fix or change me. And the third element is this kartavya. I struggle. I'll be happy when. It'll be better if. More. Better. Different. Gimme, 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 gimme. And that experience, the spriha, the longing, the trishna, the thirsting, the kama, the craving, and the compulsion to act that it impels is what hurts so bad. And then we've been covering vichara, discrimination, and its opposite, avichara, which our author is translating as lack of discrimination. That gets us into trouble, meaning we don't see what's really going on. And if we begin to really investigate, we'll begin to really see what's happening. All right, and Puneet is our chanter this evening. What verse are we on? You said 70?
Yes, 70.
All right.
Adita Paramadevi Samyak Tushta Sati Tada Vichara Rupatayati Chitta Kashe Raviryatha. Duly worshipped, the supreme deity, being pleased, takes the form of investigation in the space of the heart of the devotee, as the sun in outer space.
So what he's implying here is that when we have done our upasana, our preparatory work, and again, I want to expand this. It doesn't just mean worship of the mother. It can be worship of any kind. But all the other practices that are given us, karma yoga, asana, dana, selfless service, seva, all of these purify the head and the heart. And the fruit of that is the mind turns towards investigation. Next one. Someone has got water running or something. Would you please mute your mic?
Jim, there was a note from the previous verse. Should I read that as well?
That was what?
There was a note in the previous verse. Should I read that?
Oh, yes.
The note says, the transcendental undivided consciousness that is Tripura manifests in the heart of the devotee as the light of knowledge dispelling the darkness of ignorance.
Yes. Yes. Going on.
71, 72. Tasman nijjatma rupatam Tripura parameshriram Sarvantara niketam shri Maheshrim chinmayi shivam Aradha yeda kapatyat Sadguru varata kramat. Therefore, let one worship without wickedness or deceit, and in the traditional manner obtained through a worthy guru, that supreme goddess Tripura, who is in the form of one's own self, who has her abode within everyone as the auspicious and supreme ruler, and is of the nature of pure consciousness.
So ultimately, this worship will turn itself within. Highest form of worship is what we call Atmaramana, the capacity to revel in the bliss of our own self nature. The Upanishad thunders, it's not that which you worship out there. It's not the Murti. That's just a placeholder. Ultimately, it's the goddess, the mother. However you want to use a word, even though it's avyupadesham, it's beyond talking about, but it's consciousness and it's ourself. Next one.
Aradha nepi moolam syat bhakti shraddha cha nirmala tatrapi moolam mahatmai shravanam parikirtitam astate prathamam rama mahatmyam sampravartitam. Even in such worship, the basis should be devotion and stainless faith. Even under those circumstances, the beginning is said to be the hearing of the gospel or greatness of Tripura. Rama, therefore, the gospel was first introduced to you.
So now he's summing up this section on the importance of what I call these preparatory practices. So Dattatreya said to Parashurama, this is why I gave you, why I initiated you into this worship, so that you could purify your head and heart. Now let's see what happens after he's purified that. Going on.
Tena shrutena dhuna tvam praptavanasi mangalam vichara shreyaso moolam yasmate nahi bhiritaha. By that gospel which was heard by you, you have now obtained what is auspicious. Investigation is the basis of supreme good, on account of which there is no fear for you from this world.
So the fruit of the worship is not getting high. It's not having visions of a God. It's not getting money. It's the mind turns towards investigation. What's it all about? Who am I? What is this world? How has it come about? You start asking the important questions. So if you started to ask those questions, then the upasana you've done in this life has borne fruit, or the upasana that you've done in other lives has borne fruit. You could not ask these questions yet if it hadn't matured. Going on.
विचारोदयपर्यन्तं भयमस्ति महत्तरम् अविचारात् मदोषेण ग्रस्तस्य प्रविवासरम् यथा हि सन्निपातेन ग्रस्तस्यौषध सेवनात् अपि तावत् भवेत् यावत् धातोरशुद्धता. For one affected by the defect of absence of investigation, there is greater fear every day up to the dawn of investigation. As for a man affected by a dangerous fever, there would be fear even after using medicine as long as there is the state of impurity of the humors of the body.
Yes, so the word he's used here is dosha. Dosha means a defect, but it also carries the secondary meaning of something that's out of kilter with the body. It's a term that you find in Ayurvedic medicine, you see. So we have the defect, if we have the illness, maybe that's a better word to say. If we have the spiritual illness of no curiosity, no capacity to investigate. Oh, life is filled with fear. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want. I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I have. I'm afraid I'm going to die. Afraid I'm going to get old and sick. Fear. My opinion, fear is the chief activator of all the rest of our defects of character. It's fear. What am I afraid of? It's because I do not know who I am, and because I do not understand the world. And all the palliatives to try to become secure. Certainly, if I think self-confidence will free me from fear. No way. No way. It's a frail castle the ego builds, which crumbles at the first assault of the world. Only the woman or the man of knowledge knows what it is to be fearless. The opposite of fear is great peace. Great peace. Any thoughts on this? Going on, next one.
प्राप्ते विचारे परमे फलितं जीवितं नृणां यावत्सु जन्मसु नृणां विचारो न भवेत् परः तावत्तो जन्मतरवो वन्ध्या विफलहेतुतः स एव सफलो जन्म वृक्षो यत्र विमर्शनम्. When the supreme investigation is attained to, men's lives are fruitful. In as many lives the highest investigation does not take place, so many life trees are barren on account of their being fruitless. That alone is a fruitful life. tree where there is deliberation or reasoning.
Yes. So what Dattatreya is implying here is that our priorities begin to reorder. Many of us enter the spiritual life thinking, well, my life isn't working, or I'm unhappy with this, or I'm not getting what I want, or our relationship isn't working out. And maybe meditation will help me deal with my stress or anxiety. And it will do that. There's no question about it. But the unexamined frame is that meditation or the spiritual life will help me get about the business of living in the world, getting what I want. And what happens at some point, the whole thing turns upside down. And we see, oh, the goal of life is to come home to God. And the job and the relationship and the family and all the various things that life brings to us, that's just where I get to work out my attachments, my control issues, my identifications, etc. We start to really investigate. Who am I? Where is real peace? What is this world? Next one.
Upamanduk sadrisha ye nara nirvimarshanaha yatha kupe samutpanno no veda kinchana shubham vyapya shubham vapi kupa eva vinashyati तथा जना अपि वृद्धो पन्ना ब्रह्मांडको पटे शुभम व्यापि शुभम वापि न विदु स्वात्मन क्वचित् उत्पद्योत पद्य नश्यन्ति न जानन्ति स्वकं हितम्. Those men who are bereft of investigation are like frogs in a well. As a frog born in a well does not know anything good or bad and perishes in the well alone, so men too, born in vain in the well of the universe, do not know their good or evil anywhere. They perish being born again and again and do not know their own well being.
So it's a wonderful image of a frog in a well, and of course, it can never get out. The only world it ever knows is the water at the bottom of the well, and let's say it's surrounded by stone. That's it. So also, so many humans, their lives are so little. Get some money, get a job, get a husband, get a wife, get some children, get some jewelry, get a stock portfolio, maybe take a vacation. It's a fascinating word. You have to vacate your life because it's so miserable. And what the Dattatreya is saying is, expand your mind. There are glories you know not of. Take the greatest of all adventures. investigate. Going on.
Sukha buddhim cha dukkheshu sukhe dukkha vinishrayam prapya vichara mahatma tyat pachyante sriti pavake. Getting the perception of happiness in troubles and the firm conviction of sorrow in happiness due to the greatness of absence of investigation, they are burnt in the fire of transmigration.
Yes. It's almost like there's actually a condition that happens to some people, mostly young men in this country, who end up getting in trouble at a very young age and get started into the prison system, maybe even as teenagers. And they're in and out of prison, and their lives are just contained within prison, literally. And frequently, when they get on the outside, the freedom is too daunting. There are some who actually want to go back to the big house, where everything is regimented, where there's life is circumscribed. And that's the way so many people live. We live in the prison of our attachment to this world, this funny farm. Not knowing there's something so much greater available because of lack of investigation. All right, going on.
Dukkhena klishaya manascha na kathinchit tyajyanti tata yatha pada shatagdhyate tadetopi mahakaraha rasa bhima yatva yev tatha sansaranam janaha tvam tu rama vicharatma param dukkhasya sangataha. Being tormented by sorrow, they do not abandon that life on any account. As a jackass, though struck by 100 kicks of the leg of a she-ass, only follows the she-ass, so man goes after worldly life. Rama, but you, possessing a natural disposition for investigation, have surmounted sorrow.
So it's a marvelous image. Now, I've not been around jackasses, but I have been around horses. And so when a female horse or a jackass is in estrus, we used to call it in season, meaning it's their time to breed. The pheromones are quite evident to the male, the stallions. So they curl their lips up and they get all crazy, and they keep following the female, and they bother them. They keep wanting to sniff their hindquarters and stuff. And if the mare, the she-ass, is not yet ready to breed, she just starts kicking with her hind legs. So what you have here is this poor stallion is following this mare and wants to mate with her, and all she does is kick him in the face, and he shakes it off and goes right on after her. I mean, it's tragic and funny, such is the incredible power of testosterone. What can I say? But that's you and me in the world. One of my favorite sayings of Swamiji is he would say, go after the world, and then he would laugh diabolically. He would say, let it kick you in the teeth. He may have drawn the metaphor from the scripture or one like it. Let it drop you again and again. It's the only way to kill the ego. So if we really pay attention to what's going on, we develop the desire to be free from desire. Subhej. That's an auspicious desire. It's like we are an abused spouse. We have an abusive spouse called this world. But the thrill is so good. I keep going back to the abusive spouse. It hurts, and I get kicked here, and beaten there, and humiliated here. Never going to do that again. I'm done. Like, why? Back we go. Until through investigation, we begin to see what is it that's causing my suffering. That's the investigation. Next one.
Chapter 3. We finished the chapter.
Oh, that's the end. Oh, this is one of my favorites. So we are going to start one of the famous stories of Hemaleka and Hemachuda. And the major topic under discussion deals with this question. What is the root cause of liberation? What's the one thing that's really efficacious? Who knows the answer? Someone out there studied this text before. What's the root cause of liberation?
Sadhu Sangha.
Yes. And what does sadhu sangha mean?
Association with the wise.
Yeah. Being able to find someone who knows what the F they're talking about. If you find a woman or a man of knowledge, sadhana happens quickly and easily. Without that, you can wander in commentaries for years, do all sorts of practices. Really makes a difference. It's the root cause of liberation, the sadhu sangha. All right, let's go on. Chapter 3.
Dattatreya Proktavacha Shrutva Antya Sukautaki Jamdagnya Punarapi Prapacha Vinayanvitaha. Having heard the words uttered by Dattatreya, Parashurama, who was extremely delighted, again asked Dattatreya with humility.
So we're beginning a new inquiry. Going on.
Bhagavan Guru Narthayuktam Bhavata Yattatvam तथैव तत् अविचारात् परो नाश सम्प्राप्त सर्वथा जनैः. Lord, revered Guru, what was uttered by you is exactly so. The greatest ruin is met within every way by men due to absence of investigation.
So he's acknowledging the teaching from the second chapter. He says, "You're right. I know from my own experience." Remember, he thought he could find peace by killing all the Kshatriyas. Not only did that not work, but he got his butt kicked by Lord Ram. So he got to be humiliated. Lack of investigation. He knows from direct experience. Now, our journey may not be so extreme, but it can be something as simple as you're moving through your day and someone asks you a question. It could be a colleague at work or something like that. And you tell a fib, you tell a lie. And you leave and you go, why did I do that? You know you've compromised your own integrity. And then you stew on it. How am I going to get out?
Uh-oh. I think Jim dropped, right?
Yeah, I can't see him or hear him.
We have gotten a call.
Am I back?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, someone tried to phone and my Puneet, at some point, is there a way for me to disconnect my phone so it doesn't talk to the iPad?
I think so. Maybe, yeah, there must be a setting.
All right. So anyway, so it doesn't necessarily have to be something extreme like what Parashurama did. Or maybe you've said an unkind thing when you knew better. I didn't need to say that. So we learn these subtler modes of where lack of discrimination gets us in trouble. Going on.
विचारेण भवेत् श्रेय तन्निदानम् अपि श्रुतं महात्मा यश्रुतिरित्येव तत्र मे संशयो महान्. The highest good can arise through investigation. Its primary cause is the hearing of the gospel. Thus also has been heard by me. In that manner, there is a great doubt for me.
So he says, I've done my upasana, and now I have come up with some doubts. So one of the jobs of the Guru is to resolve our doubts. This is why it's so important to ask questions. And again, those of you who've taken class with me before have heard this. Swamiji used to thunder, I don't want any stupid questions. And then he'd say, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. Ask anything. So now Parashurama has come up with some doubts. Let's see what they are.
Katham va tadapi prapyam sadhanam tatra kim bhavet swabhi swabhavikam tadhyati Ya tat sarvaina kutshrutam. How even that is, the hearing of the gospel, has to be attained. What would be the means for that? If that can be natural, then why has it not been heard by all?
So here he's wondering, okay, so I was able to hear the gospel of Tripura from you, Tripura from you, and it's been efficacious, but how come it hasn't happened for other people? What's the deal? What's the deal? Going on.
Aham vadhyavadhikuta pravrittam napnavanihi dukham mattodhikam prapta vihatascha pade pade na kuta sadhanam prapta etan me kripaya vada itya prishta praha bhuyo prishto datto dayanidhi. Also, why did I not obtain the inclination to hear the gospel till now? Why they who have met with greater sorrow than me and have been hurt at every step have not obtained the means, the hearing of the gospel? Please tell me this out of compassion. Thus asked Dattatreya, the storehouse of compassion was delighted and spoke again.
So his questions are twofold here. Why, when I was in great sorrow earlier, why did I not hear the gospel then? And how come other people who are even in greater sorrow, why are they not instructed? Why don't they find a book in the library? Why don't they find this on YouTube? How come? And here Dattatreya begins his answer. Going on.
Rinu Rama pravikshami nidanam shreyasa param tadhi sanga param moolam sarva dukkha niharbharanam. Rama, listen. I shall relate the principal cause of the greatest good. Association with the wise is the principal cause for destruction of all sorrow.
So we have a technical word here, shrunu, shrunuhu, which means listen. But it means more than that. It means listen carefully. It means this is a really important point. So when you're making your way through scripture, whenever you see the word shrunu come up, pay attention. So here, Dattatreya says, and what is the term he's using for association with the wise here?
I think Sadhi Sangha.
Or is it Sadbi Sangha? Is it?
Oh yeah, it's Sadbhi, I guess. You're right.
Samvid Sangha?
No, Sadbhihi.
Okay. So here it's association with those who know, those who have wisdom and understanding. This is the root cause of liberation. Very important. Going on.
Paramat phala prapto bijam satsanga uchyate tvam chapi tena hi satta samvirtena mahatmana sangata sannimam prapto dasham shreya phalodayam santa eva hi sanyata deshanti param mam sukham. Association with the wise is said to be the seed for the attainment of the fruit that is the highest truth. Moreover, You, associating with that wise and noble Samvarta, have reached the state from which arises the fruit of the highest good. Only the wise, when met, indeed point out or grant the greatest happiness.
So here he's used the term satsang. We hear that all the time. What does satsang mean? It means keeping company with reality, sat. It means keeping company with the truth. And it also can mean hanging out with a guru. These are all wrapped up in this term satsang, sadhu sangha. Now, how do I know whether or not it's the right guru? So one of our most important texts is Vivekachudamani. And there's a long, long section in it which gives the qualifications of a fit student. But then it's followed by a section that are the qualifications of a fit teacher. The first is Shrotriya, meaning, literally means well-versed in the scriptures. But it's not just someone who can quote chapter and verse. It means that they understand one of the great sacred traditions and can wield a means of knowledge. There are people out there who may have lots of Shakti and be eloquent and write books and stuff like that. But I always recommend look to their disciples. Do they have any enlightened disciples? Have they been able to actually transmit? One of the things I can say about Swami Chinmayananda is there were dozens and dozens of his disciples who were deeply rooted in this knowledge. And one of the reasons is he was a master of wielding the means of knowledge. It means he knew how to work with the human mind. Shrotriya, well-versed in the scriptures, who's a full knower of the Supreme. So your guru should be rooted in this knowledge all the time without effort. It's not, oh, I touched ultimate reality 30 years ago when I saw Neem Karoli Baba. Or I dropped acid, now I know. But not now. No, needs to be a full knower of the Supreme, meaning under all circumstances and all times. They know, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman. Who has retired into the Supreme. So the best teacher, their mind is deeply immersed in the self. And then there's a borrowed glory when we're near a Mahatma. We can feel it. Our minds get quiet. In time, we can learn to tune to the mind of the Buddha. Share in that deep intimacy, that silence. Who is as calm as a fire that has burned up its fuel. One of my favorite ideas. St. Augustine said, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. Never forget that the Guru is just like you and me, and has struggled with the same challenges and disappointments as you and me. All that stuff is burnt out. It's not a raging fire anymore. It's all banked. Fire that has burned up its fury. Who is Daya Sindhu, who's an ocean of compassion, ocean of mercy, which needs no cause. You don't have anything the Guru wants. Her only joy is your liberation. That's what the relationship is about. It's like a midwife. Like a midwife. And who's an intimate friend of those who have surrendered to him. So if your guru is off in India someplace and you've never actually really seen him, but you've decided you're a disciple of so and such, that's not how it works. You might as well just have a murti in your temple. Also, it doesn't work to have a dead guru. A dead guru can't poke at your ego. You need a friend, a human being that you meet face to face. A couple other things in there that I've probably forgotten them. So here, the importance of finding a guru and listen to what they say. Now, Parashurama met Samvarta, a great sage, but he wasn't yet pure enough to enter into the practice. True story. So my first exposure to Vedanta was in 1967, 68, something like that. I was a student at UC Santa Barbara, and there was a Ramakrishna order temple, a Vedanta Society temple in Santa Barbara. And I made an appointment with the Swami. I went to see him and asked him to teach me to meditate. He looked at me and he said, "Are you in school?" And I said, "No." It was 68 because I was dropping out with the rest of the world. He said, "Are you working?" And I said, "No, I was living on student loans and credit cards and stuff." He said, "Do you do drugs?" And I lied. I said, "No, I smoke dope." He said, "When was the last time you did drugs?" And I said, 2 weeks ago." Another lie. He looked at me and he said, "Go and either get a job or go back to school. And don't do drugs for 6 months. Then come back and I will teach you to meditate." And I couldn't do it. It took me another 7 years before my heart was pure enough to be able to meet Swamiji. So it can take time. It's too gross. All right, next verse.
Vina satsangatah kena praptam shreya param kada lokepi yadrisham sangam yoya prapnoti manavah tatphalam sa samapnoti sarvatha nahi sanshayah atra te kirtayashyami shrinu rama kathamimam. Without the association of the wise, when and by whom has supreme felicity been obtained? Even in the world, whichever man acquires association of whatever nature, he obtains its fruit in every way. There is indeed no doubt about this. I shall tell you a story in this matter. Rama, hear this.
So it's interesting. It's not so much a problem among Indians, but it certainly is among Westerners. Westerners have issues around trust. And it may be because we have such a long history of charlatans in the spiritual and religious life. But people have a hard time dealing with the idea of surrender. Have a hard time with it. And we need to be able to do that. And if you look at just worldly things, if you want to become a physicist, theoretically, you could go to the library and read physics books. But that's not how most people do it. So Dr. Mark is a retired physician. Could you have become a physician by just reading books?
No, can't do that.
You know? How long was your residency?
Residency was 3 years after 4 years of medical school.
Yeah. And you had to do a whole lot of doctoring under the tutelage of people who knew what they were doing, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what you do in residency.
Yeah. And that's just to be someone once told me a doctor is nothing but a sophisticated plumber. Is that true?
Well, I don't know about that, but
But it's a worldly thing, a very important one. Very important one. How much more difficult to think, oh, I'm going to just I'm doing my own thing on the spiritual path. And people do that basically because of their inability to trust in another human being. All right, next one.
Pura dashanathipatim muktachuda itiritah tasya putra hemachuda manichudau babhuvatuhu. In former times, there was a king of Dasharna called Muktachuda. His two sons were Hemachuda and Manichuda.
So a chuda is like a crown. And so the king's name is Muktachuda, means he is the crown of liberation. He's got these two kids, Hemachuda, which is golden crown, and Manichuda, which is jeweled crown. So in former times, it's like what we say in the Western world, once upon a time. But actually, that's exactly what that phrase means now that I think of it. Once upon a time, in former times. So he's telling him a parable, a story. So we've got the king, Muktachuda, and the two dudes, Hemachuda and Manichuda. Going on.
Surupau sugunau chobhau sarva vidya visharadau kadachin mirigayot hat yotsahat sena bhi parivaritau सहया चलवनं भीमं सिंहव्याघ्रादिसंकुलं महाबलौ विविशतुर्धनुर्बाणधरौ किल. Both were of good form, of good qualities, and proficient in all sciences. Sometime, due to their desire for hunting, the two princes of great strength, carrying bows and arrows, entered, as they say, a terrible forest of the Sahya mountain, full of lions and tigers, surrounded by their armies.
So these two guys, and they're studs. They're a beautiful form, young, handsome, well built. They take their buddies, their armies, and they're going on a hunt in this very thick forest, Vanam. For lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Let's see what happens on this hunt. Going on.
अथ तत्र मृगान् सिंहान् वराहान् महिषान् वृकान् जग्नतु निशितैर्बाणय लार्घवात् कामुकुच्यतैः. Then they killed there with their sharp arrows coming out of their bores with ease, deer, lions, boars, buffaloes, and wolves.
So the hunt is a success. They're able to kill a lot of game, and so they're pretty pleased with themselves. Going on.
Evam vinigna torvanyan mrigan rajakumarayoho chandavayu pradurasicha karashamam pravarshanaha. When the two princes were thus hunting wild animals, a fierce storm sprang up, showering down sand and stones.
So it's a dust storm or a wind storm that swirls up and comes out of nowhere and obscures their capacity to see. They're being pelted by the sand and the stones. They're going to start looking for shelter. So let's see what happens next.
Panshubhirnabha akrantam bhudadarshina shopanam na drishyate tatra shila vriksha purusha eva va. The sky was covered with dust and became like night during new moon. There nothing was seen, rock, tree, or man.
So the dust in the air is so thick that they can't even see. It's like nighttime. Going on.
Kuto nichochatam pashye devam dhyantavrito girihi nihata sharkara varshaihi sena atyantam palayata. How can one see high or low ground? Thus the mountain was surrounded by darkness. Struck by the shower of gravel, the army ran away completely.
Yes, gravel, I think we say in the US. So everybody splits up and starts running for cover because of all the stones and the rocks and the wind. It's like being in a hurricane. Going on. You know what it was like? I bet a tornado. That's what it was probably. Going on.
Vrikshan kechit chila kechit kuha kechit dupasaduhu ashwarudhau rajaputra api duram palayatau. Some in the army went towards trees for protection. Some approached caves and some rocks. The two princes mounted on their horses also escaped far away.
So the armies are probably foot soldiers, and they're hiding behind trees and caves. The princes, the Rajaputra, get on their horses and they're trying to find some cover going on.
Hemachuda kvachitatra prapede tapasashramam kadalikhar juravane akrantam itu sundaram. Hemachuda reached the hermitage of an ascetic somewhere there. The hermitage was beautiful and full of thickets of plantain and date trees.
Okay, we're going to stop here for tonight. So the thing that's interesting, there's this huge storm going on. He reaches this hermitage of a sage. And once he enters in, everything is peaceful. There's no storm inside. There's trees and the birdies are singing. And we're going to see next week what happens to him next. Stay tuned for next week's exciting adventure. All right, we have time for questions.
Jim, I don't have a question. I just have an observation. Is that okay? Or
Please.
I just loved the way you mentioned about the Swamiji Chinmayananda. I have not personally seen it, but when you started talking about the way Chinmaya, I've seen a lot of his videos. So this is the first session or first few sessions. So I have not heard. I would love to hear at some point about Swami Chinmaya's teachings, or I have heard a lot of other stuff, but I would love to hear a little more. It's quite nice to hear. You almost sound, whenever I hear you sound like it almost as if I'm listening to Swami Chinmaya. It's so nice to hear that.
Well, I do mimic him on occasion. But what I find very interesting is his personality and things just for some reason don't come through a YouTube video. I actually get more presence by reading his commentaries. And that may just be unique to me. But it was an amazing experience being around him. He was a great, great man. The holiest man I have ever met. He was funny, and he was incredibly human and down to earth and natural. He laughed a lot, told jokes, loved good food, loved music, loved to watch people express. In the evenings at camps, there would be cultural events, is what he would call them. So if we were at camp, people from various states, if you were Gujarati or Malayali or Tamil, they'd all get together and they'd prepare like a song or a dance or something. And it could be something as simple as garba dancing or someone doing bhajans or something like that. But he would sit there and just rapt attention, loving to watch people express their creativity and things like that. It's wonderful. It was wonderful.
Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
And the unfortunate thing is, those of us who knew him whilst he was in the body, we're all getting pretty old. A lot of them have passed away. A lot of them have passed away. But he loved me a lot. I was very, very lucky. Anybody have questions? All right, well, let's have a long sit then.